My mom said to us when we were like 15, I get it now. You guys are soul travelers. And we were like, what the fuck is this woman talking? Like, we dismissed her because we dismissed pretty much everything my mom said when we were 15. But there was a point when we got it.
Yeah, we met in 7th grade at King Junior High.
It was Mr. Freeman's science class. When you talk about, you mentioned trust earlier. I mean, she's the person that I trust the most. Even more than my parents. So many years in and out of always being there. Of never judge. She will never judge me. I mean, she'll judge me till I be like, bitch, put your pants on. But it just, she always has my back. She'll always have my back. She'll always fight for me. And not just me, but my daughter.
Neither of my kids have like their soul traveler friend who they've been friends with for a super long time. But on the other hand, both of my kids have, and so does Halo, have long-term friends. Like, I actually think that we have modeled for them lasting friendship.
We fall down, but we get up.
Welcome back to Hometown Friends. This podcast highlights the connection between place and friendship. The friendships we make, no matter when, are often influenced by the locations and spaces where they are formed. Hometowns can be powerful environments that lead to a sense of belonging and thus to meaningful friendships. Today's episode centers two women who met in the 7th grade in Berkeley, California, Carrie Urbeck and Monique Finney. This episode will cover topics like how friendships are formed when kids protect each other from bullies, how friends are maintained over time, and how friends, especially those from adolescence, are a part of our identity. This episode highlights the experience of an interracial friendship and how others from their respective racial groups reacted to their relationship. We also cover advantages of having a best friend outside of the intimate partnership, as well as the way children in current times experience friendship and social connection. I hope that you'll appreciate hearing this story of old friends that have stayed intimately connected throughout their lives and how this deep sense of belonging is an essential element of their adult identity and how they became soul travelers. Please like, subscribe, and share. Welcome to the Hometown Friends podcast. I was going through the Facebook pages to try to, do my little research on you and see what you guys have been posting, and saw so many of your friends from high school, saw the pictures of you guys together, really saw the connection that you have had for so long. I couldn't wait to talk to you. My first question is, I guess, how did you meet? Introduce yourselves and then tell us how you guys got connected.
Yeah, we met in 7th grade at King Junior High.
It was Mr. Freeman's science class.
I was coming from a small, little private school. I would describe myself at that time as sort of abnormally skinny, redhead girl with lots of freckles, and felt really awkward. I'm not going to get into the specific details of it, but some classmates said something, and Monique kind of stood up for me.
Oh my God. That's so fresh. That's the kind of, that would make a relationship pretty solid from the beginning. You had someone who you didn't know started protecting you and from a bully. I think that's a great story. What do you remember, Monique?
Here was this girl that she was going to be like my person that I don't know. Something about her, I was protective. I'm still very protective of her.
In reflecting back, there were multiple points where like my family had looked at moving me to Arts Magnet, where Monique was. Like, I felt like there were multiple points where our lives could have overlapped. And so
there was like a dance class or something that we were going to both do. It was just destined to be. It was just a matter of time. Because I came from Arts Magnet. So there were like 30 of us, but only 3 of us went to King. Everybody else in our class went to Willard.
That's amazing. It is amazing how we find people that sometimes it's super random, meant to be, that there's some kind of universal magnetic thing, arts magnetic thing that comes together, that brings people together. So what's your life been like since King Junior High together? And it's a big story, but
You go
I
ahead
mean,
and
we grew
go.
up in Berkeley on the most opposite ends of town
hmm,
that you can possibly go and still be in Berkeley, right?
really, like,
I was just going to say, you're going to go ahead and tell that story. The first time I came down to the waterfront. Go
please,
ahead.
please do tell that story.
Go
I
ahead.
was just messing with her because I just remember the sweater,
Uh-huh.
right?
It was, it was like, what was the name of that book? The Preppy Handbook. So I was wearing my white Bermuda shorts, my Ralph Lauren shirt, probably had the collar popped, and, and like a sweatshirt over my shoulders, like that. And I'd taken the bus down to her house. And then what did you say to me? What did
I
you
told her
say?
she was going to get beat up or something like that.
She said, "You better get that sweatshirt off your shoulders. You're going to get your ass kicked." I was like,
But it was Berkeley, so I was totally kidding. I was just giving her crap.
It's funny. So, what was it like growing up where you guys grew up? What was your life like before you met each other?
So for me, I grew up in the hills. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. It wasn't like I ran with the neighborhood kids, because even though there were other kids in my neighborhood, I didn't go to the same school, so I didn't have that experience. But I sure remember when I started junior high and started riding, the bus to yeah, the public bus to school, how I started to learn people. And, those people that I rode the bus with would remain people that were pretty, became friends, became, at least many of them.
Monique, I want to curious, before you had met Carrie, what was it like growing up where you grew up? Tell us the place
Well,
in
I
Berkeley that
mean,
you grew up in your family.
I spent most of my life on Hearst in between 9th and 10th Street. So my friends were in Albany. I didn't know any of like Carrie, I didn't know my neighborhood kids. I went to dance class 6 days a week after school, pretty much. And you were either in my dance or you were in Albany. And then in 5th grade, my mom heard of this school called Berkeley Arts Magnet and put me in a lottery. And then I went to school in Berkeley. I was torn away from my friends in Albany and went to Berkeley Arts Magnet, which at the time was at Longfellow School, which was on Sacramento. And I was there 5th and 6th grade. But so I went to I went to King Junior High School. And then that's where I met Karina, Carrie, and a bunch of people. Back
Yeah.
then, I have a friend, Marla Bonner, who tells a story that she was sitting in the library at King, minding her own business, and I just sat at the table and I was like, "Hi, what's your name? We're going to be friends. I'm Monique." And she was like, I don't remember it at all, but I feel like that's how I made a lot of friends at King.
But you also met at middle school in a way that you felt like you belonged with each other, and maybe because you didn't feel like you belonged with other people in some interesting way. Is that right?
Our families of origin, right? Our parents, there was a lot going on. And so we became like a safe place for each other in that way too, that, and we could be honest with each other about those experiences because they were shared, which was a first for me. I do remember telling one other friend before I met Monique about some of the situations in my family. But that, with Monique, it was like, it felt much more like the other person got it, like she got it.
That's pretty important to
Right,
be able
because
to trust somebody. Go ahead.
I think that also because that's around the age where you start realizing that your parents, like, you see yourself separate as your parents,
Yeah,
and you start seeing how they're affecting you. And when you're a kid, you're just kind of like,
totally. Um, I'm curious, would you be willing to share any of the things that were going on? I mean, a lot of us had chaotic families. I could certainly start by saying I had a very chaotic family. My mom was an alcoholic. I didn't even know really that, but now looking back on it, now I know and realize that I was looking for other people to take me in, to share their resources, to share their families with me because I didn't want to go home. But I couldn't articulate it back then. My parents were also divorced, and I didn't live with my father. And I actually spent ninth grade in DC area with my father, but then came back to Berkeley because I love my friends so much, and came back to a home life that I didn't actually prefer. And I've said this many times. I had a sort of an insecure attachment to my own mother, but I had a secure attachment to my friendships and my community of Berkeley, California. So,
My biological father was an alcoholic, as I mentioned before. He died when I was 16.
mm,
Um, my stepfather adopted my sister and I at that point. And my stepfather had been in my life since I was about 6. So for quite some time. Um, so I spent time like between being at my dad's house where he was an alcoholic, semi-functional, but took on a lot of like, I was the parentified child, did a lot of stuff around the house to take care of myself and my younger sister. And then we'd go to my mom's house where my mom and my stepdad were both attorneys. Dinner was on the table every night. It was very, and the messages there were very much like external achievement is really important. You agree with my opinions, political and otherwise, and you kind of just don't really talk about feelings. Like the only feeling that's really okay is that you're okay.
right.
So that was kind of how I grew up.
But you could share a little bit of that with Monique.
well, I understood it because of my own parents. I remember seeing your dad drunk when we were in junior high school. And I had never seen that because my parents were different kinds of addicts. They weren't drinkers. But I recognized it immediately and knew and just knew.
Yeah. Interesting that we all three have, and probably countless others, right, in our community, but beyond that, in our world, have addiction experience, right? Being cared for by an addict, being cared for by uh, someone that actually we can't really trust. That makes a kind of person who they are. It's a double-edged sword, I can tell you that, because I'm extremely responsible for myself, but often feel like I didn't necessarily, when I remember my vulnerable child, I remember feeling like, damn, like the shit that happened to me throughout my life was like could not even tell anybody. I certainly wasn't telling people in high school. I was trying to make it, and I was trying to belong to people that, belong to a crew of kids that we were all probably faking it in some way, but I was putting on airs. I was trying to become something that I was not, but that I wanted for myself.
I think in some ways I had a distorted sense of what was safe and what wasn't. So, I had a lot of fun, but sometimes that came with some consequences that weren't always safe.
Definitely. That's a Berkeley experience too, having a lot of fun, having a lot of risk, and getting places that weren't always safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So that for sure, translated. But then, when I think about like how that was high school, went into college, was still very much a party girl, had a ton of fun, met my now husband when I was a senior. And, I say now,
Stop
like,
being fun.
it some people feel that I'm perhaps was not being fun.
You mean
Um,
the partying stop being fun? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'm just teasing her. I'm teasing her.
I was going to say I didn't experience that, but there's some feelings there. um, um, but for me, I think then that sense of safety, once I met my husband, like that, it was like holding on to that. That was that, and that served me well. But I do think that was probably a direct response to my childhood experiences. Yeah.
That makes sense. You have someone, again, stalking you on Facebook, seeing the posts that you have, the friendship that I actually wanted to talk to you about, the friendship that you and your husband have, I think is an important friendship. It's a foundational friendship. I can already see just by the, posts that you have on Facebook, how important that relationship has been. And the fact now knowing that you've met in senior year in college and you've been married for, sounds like a long, long time.
27 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of friendship is amazing. And the fact that you had a father that was, a biological father, at least, that was not dependable. And now you have this person that is very dependable. I'm guessing there might be some connection there.
Definitely. And it's interesting because one of the things I remember actually it was my 40th birthday party. And there was a group of women and we were in Jamaica. And I remember talking about, for me, I have a husband and a best friend. And a lot of people talk about their spouse as their best friend. And that's not my experience. Like I have both and they're different. And I shared it, like how the function they serve in my life is different. And I've realized that that's not something that a lot of people have.
A lot of people put all their emotional investment into that primary intimate relationship. But actually, some great research I just quoted on my last outro was that when you look at people who have had their intimate partner be their best friend, or the people that have had their best friend be outside of that relationship, that there's some real advantages. There's a very huge companionship when we put all of our sort of thoughts into our best friend being in the intimate relationship. But actually what you're describing is that your best friend being outside of the relationship, that being Monique, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Actually gives us more emotional support because we can actually talk about our full lives, including the things that go on with our intimate partnership. So that's actually an advantage that you have. And you obviously are living that. You have Monique be this friendship from the beginning, being able to actually be honest with her about your life and having her validate that.
When you talk about, you mentioned trust earlier. I mean, she's the person that I trust the most. Even more than my parents.
That's beautiful. When did you sort of realize that? Do you think?
Ooh, early.
God, so long ago, I can't even remember. Early,
Wow.
40 years ago. Yeah.
And do you think that was a personality, or do you think that was just the connection that you felt and the support that you felt early on?
I think it was the connection, but it's the so many years in and out of always being there. Of never judge. She will never judge me. I mean, she'll judge me till I be like, bitch, put your pants on. But it just, she always has my back. She'll always have my back. She'll always fight for me. And not just me, but my daughter. And I don't ever have to worry about it. I mean, like it would never even cross my mind, you know? And that's my stability. I'm not married for 27 years. So I don't have that with another person. Not even, like, again, not even my own parents, which, granted, since I got sober, they were much more dependable. But um, it feels like such a foundational relationship, like it's almost, I don't want to use primal's not the right word, but my mom said to us when we were like 15, I get it now. You guys are soul travelers. And we were like, what the fuck is this woman talking? Like, we dismissed her because we dismissed pretty much everything my mom said when you're 15. But there was a point when we got it.
I mean, I totally feel the same way as Monique. Like, it's at this point, it's been so long, like it just feels like it's always been this way. But that, like, yeah, no matter where I was, what was going on, like, I always knew that she would be there to defend me, to, wipe the tears, to, give me the pep talk, to give me the straight talk, to give me, whatever it was. There was that. It's kind of just always been there. And it's interesting, like, if you think about it through our different stages, right? Because now we're both parents of, young adult children. So it was
Adults.
from, junior, like, right, when we were kids to now being adults, parents. It's many a phases of life. I was definitely more shy. She was like the social butterfly. So I felt like I rode her coattails in many ways through high school. Um, but I feel like it was always a package deal. Like, it was like Carrie and Monique and Carrie, right? It wasn't like, oh, do you know Carrie? Oh, have you met Monique? It was like peanut butter and
One
jelly.
word.
Yeah, just go together. And I mean, a lot of people, they might not have known us, but they were like, oh, that black girl and that white girl that always be hanging out. Yep.
Well, that definitely brings a subject up that I think is really important for us to discuss. And I'm very curious about because I also experienced it myself. And is the idea that intercultural, interracial friendships don't always happen in the world, certainly in our society, but in Berkeley, lots of opportunity for it at least. How has it been to have, what do you remember about having an interracial, I guess, a friendship?
Well, for me personally, I never really noticed. It was other people saying stuff.
I was just going to say, I sort of feel the same way. And it wasn't really until, because we went to college together. We went to two different colleges, but in DC. And it wasn't until we arrived in DC together that that was a new experience, because I mean, in Berkeley, like, black people and white people hung out together all the time. That wasn't like weird. But suddenly in DC, it was weird. Um, or it was certainly notable. And so that was definitely a different experience. But I mean, I can remember hanging out at Howard and people, again, it was like, oh yeah, Monique, she's the one that has that white girl person hangs out with her, right? Like, so, I just I got comfortable, being around people that didn't look like me. And because that has been from such a young age, it just feels like who I am, I can't really imagine.
But I have to say that I felt like you had to get more comfortable with the white people at your school than
Well, yeah,
the
I mean,
black people at Howard.
true. Because I really hadn't experienced white racist people.
Yep.
Until I went to college.
Yep.
And then being treated a different kind of way sometimes by some particular people, because I dated black men, because I had a black friend. Yeah, that was definitely.
It's strange, isn't it, you guys? Like, going out into the world beyond Berkeley, California, And then actually they show you the mirror that we've never seen before. And then we're like, oh,
My friends at Howard were just had questions. People didn't come up and say like racist shit to me. Like, I mean, it was just curiosity, honestly. And I really didn't get into. I had this friend named Tunji, rest in peace, that grew up in Philadelphia, was the class of 90 or 91, and had never gone to school with a white person. And I was like, I thought he was kidding. He was not kidding. And so that's when I was like, oh, this is the curiosity. It wasn't coming from a superiority place or an inferior. It was like a serious, like a, how do you know white people?
yeah. I mean, I think actually that's something you bring up, something that I think is actually really important, is that white people and black people who don't have friends that don't look like them, right, are actually often just curious and are possibly don't have the experience. And so it's not like they're necessarily racist per se. They just don't have the experience. That's something that was unique about Berkeley.
Well, it's interesting because my best friend from college is also a black woman. But I sought her out, right? I mean, well, one, she was one of two black women in my sorority. Um, but I just naturally gravitate. I mean, even when I went to graduate school, one of my better friends, I tended to be better friends with people of color than I did with, well, I was friends with white people too, but I sought out friendships with people of color, which I don't think a lot of white, at least at the time, a lot of white people, of my white peers, were not doing that.
And that is a direct connection to your friendship with Monique, right?
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Like I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing that for sure. I mean, like now, in fact, in some other, now in my life today, I'm involved in an organization and, when people of color come into that, like it still is a very white organization. So I'm real intentional about making friends or trying to reach out and welcome people of color. And that's directly related to this. I mean, my mom's asked me on multiple occasions, like, do you think that's because you and Monique have been best friends for that long?
We always stop and acknowledge how lucky we are to have each other. We're very grateful. It just doesn't take any work, right? Like we just come as we are and loved as we are.
She knows me and she accepts me as I am,
It's such a beautiful part of friendship. It's such a moving and important part of the human connections with others, is to have this sense of trust and faith and the feeling of peace, as you said, Monique. Like to have that person, that goes a long way in dealing with the pain and suffering in life.
It does. And one of the things that we also have often talked about is how we wish this for our daughters, our own daughters, so much. Neither one of them really has that, but it's like, well, we wish this for the world, but especially for Sky and Halo.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's so true, especially if, I mean, living it and then having our own children that I have.
The friendships just aren't, and my daughter hasn't had anything like the friendships that I've had in Berkeley.
No, but on the other hand, neither of my kids have like their soul traveler friend who they've been friends with for a super long time. But on the other hand, both of my kids have, and so does Halo, have long-term friends. Like I actually think that we have modeled for them lasting friendship. And so while maybe they haven't found exactly their one person, that's more of a unique experience, there is a real value that both of my kids place on their friendships. And like, my son's not really, he's still in college, his life looks a little bit different, but my daughter, who is maybe finding her person and sort of starting to settle down, I see her very intentionally maintaining friendships that are outside of that romantic relationship. I think that is in large part because of what they've seen. They call Monique Tita, right? They call her aunt.
And whenever we talk, I'm like saying our kids, our kids, our kids, and they make fun of me because I'm like, we have 3 kids. Our oldest, our sweet boy, and then the younger one.
and then the younger one.
So cute. The fact that you,
That's
so it's like your identity is with each other. Your identity, you have identified as a family over these years because of all the trials and tribulations and connections that you've maintained.
For sure. And actually, I was thinking about, you were talking about attachment. And I think I'm just sort of reflecting on this and realizing I think Monique probably was my first secure attachment in my life.
It's beautiful. I think friendships can do that for us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, I've been a psychologist for 25 years. I don't remember one class or one professor who ever talked about this idea that friendships can become secure attachments, and that they actually give us the model to go on and become securely attached with other people too, right? Because that's what attachment is supposed to do from the early bonds, is like give you this model so that you can recreate it in other relationships. And shit, I just never heard of it.
Yeah.
And now that I'm going through it and talking to people about friendships, I'm seeing it, that's a common experience. Of course, it could work the other way too, where, they're insecure, and then thus one struggles to trust people, and people outside of families, right? If you, for instance, if you were bullied, or if you didn't have that secure attachment outside of the family, you often just look for family members, and then you keep going back to family members. But when you've had securely attached friendships, we actually go out into the world and trust that we can make these very deep connections and trust people outside of our families.
Yeah. Which is so important. I mean, for a whole host of reasons, but yeah. In the work I do now, I work with young adults in substance use recovery, and like learning how to be a good friend and like show up consistently is like a lot of the work that we do. And it does cause me pause and worry for our society, honestly, that friendship in for young people today it seems, at least from the outside looking in, it seems harder than, I don't know, maybe those are my rose-colored glasses looking backwards, but I like the stuff that I just don't remember us like ever having a lot of the bullying stuff. Like I don't remember that, Monique. Do you like tit for tat kind of stuff between us?
me and you?
Yeah.
No.
I was like, wait, does she have a seriously different opinion than me? No, but just and even beyond that, not that there wasn't any look, there was definitely bullying in my experience, both ways. I'm not going to try and claim that I was always you know always so kind, but it
You
just
were.
it
You
seemed
were.
like a different element than it does now.
It's a different era. Friendships are slightly different, but I think at the core they are the same, right? They're about connection, but it's certainly with all the technology. I mean, we're in a totally different version of society than we were back when we were kids. But I think what I've interviewed many younger folks in their 20s on this podcast, and the friendship is the same. Friendship is the same, and often I think it's harder because we have more distraction. We have more times. There are more avenues to distract us from human connection. So I think it often is more challenging to find them and connect with them and invest in them the way that it was when we had less technology.
My kid is was in 8th grade when COVID happened, so she spent her freshman year. I mean, I think that did not help. But even drop them off at the house, they just sit on the couch on their phones. Like, they'll sit together, but they don't even
Yes.
talk.
Yes, because I mean, this is the great example of the way in which people have to navigate friendships now, or human connection, right? Because there's so many distractions for us. But I will say I was uplifted by the young people that I have had on this podcast. When I see my own kids or other things, they're definitely changed. But I don't like, as you said, I don't like, oh, when our day was way better. I just think it's different. And I think friendship is universal. I think friendship, there's nothing more important in my life than human connection, but friendship really gets me going because I've benefited so much from it, and it's saved me. Like, I just wouldn't be the kind of person I am, and wanting to talk about it because it really was one of the most positive things in my life. Let's talk about your personal journeys, you guys. So you went off to college, Howard and American, and then what did you guys end up doing beyond that, and other relationships and or, career wise?
I graduated from Howard and moved immediately to Los Angeles to break into the television business. When I was little, my mom used to call me the walking, talking TV guide because you could be like, "What's on Thursday at 7?" And I'd be like, but it's a long story, so I'll make it short. My first obsession came in the 8th grade when I didn't get a part in a play. Rebecca Romaine got the part. And
it's amazing.
And so when I looked for colleges, then there was only a handful of schools that didn't have film studies or mass communications. Like, there wasn't really, and Howard had their own TV station and I ended up going there, but I was very, very clear about what I wanted to do. I love what I do. I can't imagine not doing it. I've tried many, many times to figure out something else to do with my life. And I'm just a storyteller, and it's just what I do, and I'm good at it. And then for a while, when we had little ones, we would meet once a year, preferably in Jamaica. We had 5 days for 5 days. And we would just be like this with each other and forget those kids. In the most loving way. They were,
of course,
with their dads.
Of course. and they gave you your space to connect and reconnect and to find value in this beautiful relationship that you guys have cultivated throughout your lives. So it sounds like you really admire that and likely have a lot of admiration for each other. How do you guys admire each other?
She's just the best person I know. I mean, for the reasons why that she identifies. She's loyal. She's honest. She's brave. She's strong. She's funny. I just love her. She's adorable.
Come on now. I'm surprised to hear funny because you still like to pull out that one joke that I had.
Well, you had one joke about her toe. 25 years ago.
That was going to say
we were
private.
in college.
Oh, come on.
She's told one funny joke since college. No,
So I would reflect those things back to Monique. I mean, Monique is one of the bravest, strongest, like, to me, reflects the image when I think of a survivor, somebody who's really, had shit thrown at them and keeps getting up and keeps going and has done so with such authenticity and intention. And that has really, I mean, it was evident in like her personal life and her professional life before she had Halo, but since she's had Halo, being a single mom essentially for most of that time, is no fucking joke. Like I don't really know if I could do it, quite frankly.
I can't
I'm
do it
really
without Carrie because she's taken the place of like discussions that I would have had with her dad. Um, she's the other parent that I have to bounce things off of and say, oh my God, and should I do this? And what, I mean, she's taken on that role whether or not she wanted to. But I couldn't have done it without you, Carrie. I mean, you're her other parent.
right. That sentiment is felt both ways, right? That we've been for each other, co-parent. Like we've filled a lot, like you could put a lot of different role titles into it. But I mean, I actually, I've stopped calling in certain circles. Monique's not known as my best friend anymore. She's known as my life partner.
Beautiful. Yeah. It can progress because you've
Don't put
lived
any
so
labels
long.
on me.
You bring up a really important, conversation about what friends do for each other, but they're there when we're at our lowest. They're there when we go through the bad times. And you guys you started that early on so you could trust each other throughout. But I did want to bring up, for you, Monique, if that's okay, is to sort of shout out the struggle that you had to go through pretty recently with the LA fires and the Pasadena fires. And I'm curious of what this friendship has meant to you going through all of that. You lost your home, correct?
Yes, lost our whole block and blocks as far as the eye can see. Um, it's also, I like to clarify that I haven't been through it, that I'm living it right now. Um, it's just the first few months, you're just like, I couldn't even form a complete sentence in my thoughts. So it's not until several months go by that you're even with reality, like that you're even kind of sort of with reality. And one of the reasons that I'm in Mexico is because I was on a really big project at the time, thank God, um, that this is really the only time I've had to sit with myself without my daughter, without the, just kind of without work. But it's so weird to just see like, it looks like a farmland almost because there's just nothing.
Well, you guys, this conversation is so uplifting to me because it's just beautiful to see the kind of connection that you have had since seventh grade. It's also great to just hear how you supported each other, how you've learned from each other, what this friendship has meant. And I think this is what this project is all about, is just highlighting friendship, talking about friendship, thinking about friendship. I call it the new health craze because we need to be thinking and talking and being aware of these people in our lives more. That we can't get bored of it. We can't take them for granted because we're gonna, rest in peace. We've lost so many people, and they were good friends, and they had good friends, and they were good friends, and we're all marching to the same place. But when we take some time to pause and look at these people and how important these people are in our lives, and be aware and have gratitude, I think that helps life, and it focuses on human connection and how important human connection is, and friendship in general is to our lives. And I think I think in this time we need lots of opportunities to do that. So I hope you guys agree with me.
Definitely. I appreciate it. It's a rare opportunity, honestly, to sit and like reflect on the friendship and talk about it in this kind of a way. So, I'll appreciate this.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity to share about this wonderful, beautiful human that I call my life partner.
Oh, my life partner. I can't wait to see you.
That's fantastic. Thanks for listening to this episode. There are so many meaningful parts of this interview that I want to highlight, especially because these soul travelers are living what I wanted this podcast to explore. Monique even described this relationship with Carrie as foundational, and this is the term that I often use as well. Childhood and adolescent friendships are foundational to our sense of self, and they are the building blocks of our social development. Even if we don't stay in touch with these friendships, our early social relationships influenced us in significant ways that we are often unaware of. The friendships from our youth, especially if we stay connected to them, can feel more like family, or as Carrie said, can become life partnerships. These relationships are often essential parts of our identity and provide us with the type of emotional support that positively influence our mental health. Another part of this episode that I believe deserves more focus is the fact that Carrie and Monique represent different racial groups. And research on interracial friendships has found a number of important social and psychological effects that shape individuals and communities. Studies suggest that positive interpersonal contact between members of different racial groups reduces prejudice, and when friendships are formed across racial lines, it decreases awkwardness and negative stereotypes and increases intergroup solidarity. It might seem insignificant or trivial, but as Carrie and Monique have shared, many people they met at their respective colleges had never even been given the opportunity to know or to befriend a person from a different race. In Berkeley, California, starting in the 1960s and up through today, interracial friendships are fostered by intentionally diversifying the school system by busing children from different neighborhoods so that the school's student body represents the diversity of the city. This practice resulted in exposing and encouraging children to value equity and inclusion principles and see the value of learning about others through the lens of cultural awareness. For most of us who grew up in Berkeley, or those who choose to raise their families here, this is an essential element of the attitudes, values, and beliefs that are fostered. This is often what is called the Berkeley bubble, as these values are surprisingly not shared in other locations. These social policies, which are tied to this research, suggest that these practices are not just personally significant, but they contribute to an evolving and more progressive society. These intentional practices teach children the value of pluralism, which leads to more opportunities to experience the positive aspects of diversity in our schools, colleges, and workplaces, and society in general. These experiences significantly reduce bias, enhance empathy, decrease othering, and promote a more inclusive society. I'm curious of what others think about this, and if you have a story about a friend to share, leave us a comment or send us an email. And please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with others. And if you value what we're doing, please follow us on social media to stay updated. Thanks for listening, and stay connected, everyone.
We fall